for sure.
Yep.
And I know you've been in Boston Public Schools for a really short time.
Mhm.
So how has that been for you, being a black male educator and having to go through the rigors of, teaching in the classroom and having to, deal with a lot of the transitions that, we typically deal with, you know, in the system?
It's been a learning experience, a very much needed learning experience, because up until September, I had never taught anything.
Wow.
Yeah, up until September, I've never been in a classroom, ever been in front of anyone teaching. And so this year for me provided me with a very much needed experience, opportunity to learn, to grow in a lot of different areas. Um, and I was really tested and challenged in January because my mentor teacher was gone. He was on paternity leave. And so, in a sense, I was responsible for the entire eighth grade cohort's learning in almost MCAS in a sense. And so having to lesson plan for that, setting time aside for grades, being in touch with parents, and also going to grad school and working at Apple, it was definitely a challenge. By far the most difficult thing that I had to do. Um, but I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from my principal. I've learned a lot from my mentor. You know, I've learned certain skills. I've learned things that someone might consider minor, and I've learned skills that someone might consider major. They're all important when it comes to teaching because everyone learns differently. So it's definitely been a roller coaster, especially with COVID stepping in.
Right. And how have the numbers been as far as attendance in your classes?
Oh man, attendance, man. I don't play that, man. Kids know they gotta come to my class, man. I be telling them they know what's up. Don't let the baby face fool you. I Yo, honestly, bro, I set the standards so high for these kids. Now, I know they just 13 and 14-year olds, but that's not my mindset,
Mhm.
because the way I think about it is, hey, if I can find a way to create this desire in them, and try to show them the fruits of hard work and what that can do, um, they'll be in great shape once they get to my age, 24, 25. So students came to class often. Students participated, even the kids that normally probably wouldn't participate in another class. They participated in my class. They collaborated with one another. It was a respectful environment, and I was learning from them as much as they were learning from me because again, I was a new teacher. You know,
There you go. There you
yeah,
go. So you're teaching, you're growing, you're
yep,
just doing all these different things to keep yourself focused and on the right path. Now,
absolutely,
on this journey, you decided, well, I want to go ahead and just start being entrepreneurial
yeah,
and start a business which we call Unofficial E. So
yeah.
why don't you just share with the viewers what that is, what the mission entails, and what inspired you to start Unofficial E?
Yeah, so unofficial E is just me being a little bit discreet with my business and the name. I don't want to share too much details with it yet. And so when I was creating Facebook, I decided to just keep it as unofficial E.
Okay.
Yeah, but best believe that's going to change soon. When I'm ready to expose everything and share everything to the world, um, I will. Uh, but really, what that started with, teaching has opened my eyes to my talent. That's just the truth. I always thought that I wasn't talented at anything, that I wasn't gifted. I didn't know how to do anything. But teaching has showed me that I have the ability to motivate, inspire, and relate to people, which are really important when it comes to success and development. And so at my school is, I'd say, 90% Latino, and a lot
Mhm.
of the parents do not speak English. And we use the talking app, to communicate with parents. But I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh my God, so many parents do not speak English. Um, it'd be cool if I could teach them how to speak English. I teach their kids. I wonder, what it'd be like if I could teach them. It was just a simple thought, you know. And then it grew, Then I really started paying attention, and it went from teaching my students' parents to teaching the Haitian community in Boston,
Hmm.
and realizing what a difference that could make in their lives if I could get them to speak English, in a very engaging manner. Um, and for me, it wasn't really about teaching them English. It was more so about getting a lot of them to accept the fact that you can learn. Even if you're 45, 50, 55, like, just putting that desire and that fire inside of them. And so that's where Unofficial E came into play. So I thought, why not just start my own business where I teach people English, and also teach them how to immerse themselves within the American culture, um, and just teach them the American way, what it means to have some success in the States.
No, man, absolutely. And when you think about just the acquisition of the English language,
Hmm.
that also plays into the conversation of equity,
Right,
especially when we talk about education, because so many families are exploited and taken advantage of because of the fact that they're not able to speak English proficiently,
right, right.
especially now during this time of COVID where families are needing more support than ever from schools.
Hmm.
And if you're not able to properly communicate what your needs are,
Right,
and you don't really understand the academic work that's being assigned to your children,
right,
now you're in a more difficult situation.
right. Exactly.
So I know that it can be even more of a challenge for our immigrant families.
Exactly. And we talk about being able to speak English to maybe go to school or to start your own business and all those great aspirations, but just sometimes it don't even have to go that far up. It's simply just being able to interact with the person next to you and to say good morning, or to say, hey, I would like to get to this place. Can you help me, please? Right? I mean, not being able to interact with people, it's a barrier, and I'd like to break that barrier. I'd like to get people to feel comfortable, and believe it or not, bro, there are some immigrants, there are some people who feel inferior to
Hmm.
others simply because they don't speak English, and for me, as long as I'm around, I'd like to change that, because we're all one, you
There you
know.
go.
I don't want I don't want my people coming from Haiti, coming from Brazil, wherever, El Salvador, to feel like they cannot speak, or they should feel inferior simply because they don't have English speaking skills.
Mhm. And you know what's interesting? When people come to the United States,
Right.
they're being coerced to master the English language.
Hmm.
But then when Americans and and I have, personal experience with this, when we travel to other countries,
Mm.
that pressure is not exactly the same. If
Right.
anything, they conform to us and they try to speak English to us.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because of the fact that it is a universal language and it is the language of the world. It's the
Lingua
base
franca.
language.
Yes, sir.
But I always find it interesting how it doesn't reciprocate when we travel to other countries. But then when they come to our country, they have to
Yeah.
like they're forced to have to learn.
Yeah. English is the definition of a lingua franca. It's spoken everywhere. It's so important everywhere. Everyone wants to speak English. It's the business language. It's just the communication language. It's so important and relevant everywhere. And so for me, it's important that I get people to begin to develop themselves. It starts off with something as small as teaching them English, and that might grow to them doing things that they never thought was imaginable in the States.
There you go.
Yeah, bro.
For sure, for sure. So let's keep on talking about you. So we've talked about the students, but I know for you, you're very passionate about this idea of black men, young black men just growing professionally and personally,
Yeah,
because there's so many of us who find ourselves in situations where it just feels like a cycle. We see our
yeah.
parents go through this cycle of
Mhm.
despair and feeling like they can't accomplish their aspirations or they're not going to amount to anything. And when you live in a city like Boston, which can be really rough, and there are other cities like Boston that are really, difficult to navigate,
Right,
and it can cause you to lose hope.
right.
So, what do you think are some things that people can do, especially during this time, to really assess where they are personally and professionally, and
Right.
what can they do to elevate themselves?
That's a very good question, man. That's a very good question. What can you do during these times to elevate yourself? A time where you're not supposed to go anywhere, a time where you can't really interact with the ones you love or the ones you consider family. And so that's a very good question. I think this is the time specifically for people around my age, like anywhere from 20 to 25. I think this is the time to really just begin to plan for your future. I mean, life has slowed down. I mean, you have a pencil, you have a notepad, or you have your notes on your phone. Let's begin. It's a good time to begin to outline, you know, what steps we're going to take um, to better our future, to secure our future, and that looks different for so many people, right? Because there's so many different ways to go about it. And just speaking on my personal development and what I'm doing right now
Mhm.
to elevate myself. Um, for example, starting off with the gym, I try to be disciplined and maintain doing some push-ups and some core workouts every other day to not slack off, right? Because the gym is closed. I can
Right.
I can be like, oh, the gym is closed. I have a reason to get crazy and not be active, but I try to maintain that discipline and still work out a little bit, right? Um, but then at the same time, I take the time to work on my future, right? I know that I'm going to be teaching in the fall, right? And so what can I do to prepare myself to teach, but not only teach, but teach remotely, right? And so
Mhm.
I'm finding a lot of different ways to elevate myself, whether it be getting Google certified, whether it be talking with my mentors and going over my experience as a first year teacher, what mistakes did I make and how can I learn from them. But more importantly, bro, for me, I'm taking the time to just get my mental health back because
Yeah.
mental health is important.
Oh, it's essential. So
Yo,
essential.
and I used to think that mental health, I don't really care about that. I got the energy, I got the drive, I got the support. Is go mentality. But you know what happens is the brain can only handle so much. And when you
True.
have so many things coming your way that has to get done, it's very easy to become a bit more angry, to be isolated, and it's not healthy. So I'm taking this time to get my mental health right, whether it
Okay.
be taking some time to sleep more, to rest, to meditate, to stretch. Uh, my showers are definitely a little bit longer now, where I just let water run. Bro, I just let water run and I tilt my head down and I go Zen mode.
um,
Like I just go somewhere else because those are the things that are important to me. My development as a professional, a young professional, my mental health and my physique. Those are important for me. And those are some of the things that I'm doing right now to
well, that's great because I know, being whether you're a first year teacher or second year teacher, to be in these unprecedented times where the school year has prematurely ended
hmm
and you're still in the process of trying to, get into a rhythm and figure out who you're going to ultimately be as an educator, because the reality is you're pretty much doing what your mentor teachers have taught you.
Mm-hmm.
You're still trying to mold yourself into the educator you have yet to become.
Right.
So when you find yourself in a situation where school's ended and now it's like, okay, what do I do now?
Right.
I can call my mentors, but I can't physically meet with them to really have those deep, intimate conversations about how I'm feeling and
Mm-hmm.
how I need to adjust my instructional practice.
Mm-hmm.
You're not having those conversations. You're pretty much trying to figure out a way to be able to teach your kids who are fighting complacency because in their mind the expectations are lax academically.
Right.
I know with BPS they pretty much let teachers know that we can't penalize students at this time because of what's happening right now with COVID-19.
Right.
So there are students who feel like they have a pass.
Yeah.
They're not putting forth the effort. They're thinking, well, I can't stay back anyway
Mm-hmm.
because my teachers can't fail me. They can only increase my grade based on the work that I provide. So if you're someone who already had, let's say, a C average,
Mm-hmm.
or better yet, you're at a 60 because in BPS the minimum is a 60% in order to pass
You're right. Yep.
in every class. So if you're already at the 60 mark and you're just that student who just wants to do the bare minimum and they don't want to put the effort in,
Right.
you could honestly still end up passing without passing any work,
Right.
which I definitely don't promote at all.
Right. Yeah.
I definitely don't promote at all, but that's just the reality of where we are. And just looking through the my news feed on the different social media sites,
Mm-hmm.
you see so many stories of teachers commiserating and complain about the fact that their students are have checked out for the rest of the year, and then they're wondering, is there a way for me to penalize them? Because yes, we're in the midst of a pandemic, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time learning has to continue.
Right.
So since you're actively in the classroom, what do you feel is a priority? I mean, we talked about mental health, we talked about self-care, but then there's the academic piece. So what's your personal opinion about all this?
Well, I think it goes back to, and this is why remote teaching is going to be really challenging in the fall. But we talk about the importance of um, relationship building and understanding what hard work is.
Mhm.
I think those are two really important components when it comes to teaching. If you're someone who don't like hard work, don't try and be an educator.
There you
you know,
go.
uh, but more importantly is relationship building, because as crazy as it sounds, when you have a good relationship, an authentic relationship with your students, they will get their work done. And they're not doing it for themselves, they're doing it for you because they don't want to disappoint you,
Oh,
right?
for sure.
It's weird that they think that they're doing their work for you, but in their minds, because they vibe with you, they want to get their work done. And they're doing it all because they want to please you, right? And
Yeah.
so and so for me, I think while I can't help every student, right? Every single student, even though I try to, while I might not be able to get through to every single student, but I know that the relationship that I have built in the physical setting is going to translate into remote setting, right? Whereas as long as I'm creative and I'm finding ways to allow them to see my face, they're going to remember, oh, okay, we remember what he says. We remember the habits he implemented within the classroom. We remembered how much he cared about our success, right? Um,
Hmm.
ain't nothing changed. Damn,
No.
over remote, he's still the same. Like
Yeah. All
he
right.
still talks the same, he speaks the same, he looks the same demeanor. He still expects greatness from us, and his work is not stopping. we don't want to disappoint him. Like, let's buckle up, let's get work done, right? But if you don't have that authentic relationship with your students, of course they're not going to want to do
There it
work,
is. There it is.
right? Like, what's the point? I mean, we got the Xbox right here. I could just be cooling and chilling, right? But when you have a genuine relationship, when students feel like you're not just their educator, you're a role model, you're a leader, they will go out of their way to get work done. And I am proud to say that the eighth grade cohort, not so long ago, the principal announced that we have 90+% of our students tuning in into our Google Classroom.
Oh yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
It's,
sir.
it's, it's dope. And I think one of the reasons why I really like it is because when I'm teaching, I really try and put myself into the shoes of my students. Because again, middle school for me was only 10 years ago, 11 years ago. It was not that far ago.
Oh wow.
And I still remember, yeah, man, I still remember a lot of my teachers' face vividly, their names, their habits, the classroom, the walls. I still remember what I liked and what I didn't like. And so I really try to place myself within their shoes. And the key word for me is fairness, right? I try to be fair, you know. So if you're fair and you have an authentic relationship with your students, remote or not, they'll tap in. And then if you're a very good teacher, if you're creative, you'll find ways to implement technology in a fun way.
Hmm.
They're realizing, oh shoot, this is Flipgrid is pretty much Snapchat,
Yeah.
where I'm on my phone and I'm talking about a poet that we read and I'm responding to it. And I don't have to speak proper if I don't want to, as long as I'm respectful. I can talk in slang. It's encouraged, right? I can be myself. I can rap about it. I can sing about it. You know, Flipgrid is Snapchat, an educational platform just like Snapchat. If you can implement those creative tools within your remote classroom, you really don't have much to worry about. Honestly, kids will get it done. You
Yeah.
know, kids
But
will get it done.
you mentioned a lot of things just now. So there's the technology piece, but the relationship piece.
Hmm.
And I just had a conversation with a friend of mine about the relationship piece.
Hmm.
And the conversation was about the idea of engagement, students not logging in for their
Hmm.
virtual lessons with teachers.
Right.
And I just told them, well, here's the thing. If you're that educator who wasn't taking the time to build relationships with kids, and not only that,
Hmm.
you were that type that just gave worksheets and just sat at your desk the whole time and just let kids do busy work.
Right.
Now, when you translate those behaviors into the virtual world, you
Hmm.
start to see your effectiveness.
Right.
You can't hide behind your classroom anymore because you're not in that physical space. You're
Hmm.
out in the open, and the students are really letting you know how they really feel about you.
Hmm.
So the relationships, especially now, are so key during this time. And if you were a teacher who didn't have that relationship with your students,
Right.
you're struggling even more than that other teacher who put the effort in from day
Right.
one to build the
Right.
rapport.
I agree.
Now, I had a question for about technology, and
Hmm.
I've asked this with other educators. Do you believe that COVID-19 will change the way that we legislate the use of smartphones and other electronic devices in our schools? Because we know what it's like in Boston. We know that there are very strict policies about smartphone use in school.
Hmm.
Basically, you can't have it out, during class
Right.
because people are doing inappropriate things with it,
Right. Right. Right.
inappropriate text, which does happen, especially when you talk about middle school and high school kids. They're gonna do those things,
You're right.
but I feel like now we're in this space where we have to rely on those same tools that we legislate so hard to get out of our schools and
Mm-hmm.
classrooms
Mm-hmm.
in order for this remote learning to work.
Right.
So I guess I'm wondering, and I want to pick your brain, do you feel like it's going to change the way that districts, not just Boston Public Schools, but other districts will look at the use of social media, the use of smartphones in the classroom? Will there be more leniency as far as how that's done?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because COVID came like a thief in the night.
Yeah,
I mean, like
right.
it took everyone by surprise. And not everyone is, you know, talented with technology and implementing technology within their classroom.
Oh,
And
for sure.
and you see how the surprise educators, had when COVID hit. And it's like, oh, okay, COVID hit, schools closed last minute. I have to translate my physical classroom into a remote classroom. How do I go about doing that? What are lessons going to look like? What are communicating with parents going to look like? What does talking to my students look like? You know what I mean? Like feedback look like? What does group work look like? And it's like all of those things are doable. Group work remotely, they're doable. Um, Communicating with your students, communicating with their parents are all doable. One-on-ones, they're all doable. You just have to have the knowledge, obviously, to do those things. And I think because of the surprise COVID hit educators in the system with, I think they're going to be like, hey, a certain percentage of your classroom must be, you know, include technology. It just has to find ways to. I think all classrooms might, have Google Classrooms, or like will have some other form of educational platform, even when students are able to come back into the physical setting, because we don't want that surprise, right? And so I definitely think to that, you know transitioning, from being 100%, a physical learning environment to remote, that's going to change. All right, because that's just where we're heading. That's just, you see the importance of remote education right now. It's so important to be able to do that. So I think that's what's going to happen
And then
moving
just
forward.
to add to what you're saying, just look at the past month and a half. We've seen some amazing stories of teachers doing incredible, innovative things with social media, with online learning
Right.
that at one point you thought would never happen in the classroom
Right.
because you may have had that principal who didn't give you the license pedagogically to try out technology and to try something different from what we've always done traditionally. So
Mm-hmm.
now I feel like it's giving teachers more autonomy, especially now with standardized tests being canceled for the rest of the year. I know here in Boston, we always talk about MCAS and preparing our kids for that.
Mm-hmm.
But now that it's out the conversation for this year,
Right.
that pressure has been lifted off our shoulders. And
Yeah.
we can actually do some authentic teaching.
Mm.
For some of us, probably for the first time in a long time, and maybe for others, first time ever. So
Right.
that's the part that's most exciting about being in this space, even though it does have its set of challenges.
It does.
All right. So we're starting to wind down. So I want to go ahead and share the unofficial E page for our viewers so they can see where to go on Facebook to check out your work and how to support. So I'm just
Yeah.
going to go ahead and,
Support, support, support. Can't
yeah,
can't do it all, man. I got huge visions. I have like big aspirations when it comes to the Haitian community, Brazilians, Colombians, Cape Verdean, Creole, Puerto Rican, Dominicans, you name it, my minority people. I have my vision, my aspirations are this high when it comes to elevating them.
yeah.
Um,
So yeah. So y'all check this out. Now, when you're looking for the unofficial E logo, look for the big white logo with the white E because there are multiple companies that I've discovered that are the same name,
mhm,
but the logos are different. So you want to look for the one with the white E.
mhm.
And since this is Teacher Appreciation Week, let's show Giving some love. Show this brother some love and like his page if you're on Facebook. Check out the work he's doing with immigrants and families and how he's teaching them how to learn English. This is an incredible platform and it's only going to get better with time. So please, if you're on Facebook, let's support that brother.
I appreciate you.
Let's support him.
I appreciate you.
So before we log off, do you want to share with viewers how they can contact you on social media outside of the unofficial E page? Where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you go on that page, my believe my phone number, my business phone number is there, and that line is always open, always active. Right now, Facebook is really my main social media outlet
Mhm.
for my business, simply because of the target group, right? A lot, a lot of older folks have Facebook, than Instagram, or Snapchat and things of that nature. I am going to be creating, other social media outlets for the business page. Uh, but for now, just liking that Facebook page for me, sharing it, is going to be very helpful. Once that page bulks up with likes and a following base, I can then use Facebook to let people know, hey, I have an Instagram page now,
Mhm.
or hey, which I do have an Instagram page. It's English guy with two U's with that people can go and follow if they'd like to. But really, my main focus is really this Facebook page because a lot of older folks use Facebook more than they use Snapchat. And you can see here, this is just if you scroll back up for me, you can see this.
Sure.
This is right here. This is my room, man. This is where it all started.
This is the classroom.
You talk about Nike started in the back of a garage, and things of that nature. So this is my room where I'm in right now. I just turned my room into a little mini classroom to support and elevate people, because you would be surprised, bro, what instilling faith and providing a little bit of support will do for someone's soul. And so for me, I took it upon myself to be like, I'm throwing my bed away. I threw my bed out and I turned it into a little mini classroom. And man, was I having so much fun and so much success doing it before this pandemic hit. And I cannot wait to pick back up. If you scroll down, you'll see I have students globally. George, there's a student called George right here.
Hmm.
I met George at the Apple store, so I work at Apple, and let George know that I teach English. He was excited and he wanted to learn. He liked my charisma. He liked the motivation that I, was instilling in him. And George been calling me constantly, and I've been teaching him. We've been talking via FaceTime, and we've been finding ways to deliver the material to him in an engaging fashion. So he lives in Brazil right now. I have students in Colombia. So we're global, and I just want to continue to grow. The fact that other people across the world, want my help and my service gives me confidence and shows me that this work is very much needed in the community.
Oh man, for sure. And it's just commendable because I can think about when I was 25 years old. I was still trying to grow up. I was still trying to figure things out. So for you to have this vision
Hmm.
at a relatively early age, I mean, 25 is pretty early. I don't know too many 25-year-olds that pretty much have an idea of what they want to do and they can verbalize it in a way that's so eloquent and clear and coherent for people to understand. That's
Yeah,
rare. So I
yeah,
just commend you for that, brother. I really do.
I appreciate you.
All
That's
right.
my vision. That's my vision. Definitely, I want to be able to educate Boston public school kids and educate their parents as well. Teach them both. That's great work.
Absolutely, man. But Guivens, man, thank you for being a part of the show.
Pleasure.
Appreciate you being on the platform.
Pleasure, bro.
And I know that people are going to be following you in the near future and following the great work you're doing in the Boston community and beyond. So, man, thank you again, brother.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on here, and I can't
Uh,
wait to get back on.
yes, sir. All right.
All right, bro.
And so there you have it, folks. We're about to wrap up another episode of Identity Talk for Educators Live. But before we do that, I want to do a giveaway for Teacher Appreciation Week. So I have my two books, From Inaction to Inaction, and I have Shape the Teacher Identity. So for anybody who would like to get copies of both of these books, here's what you have to do. And I'll share the screen right now. So let me share the screen real quick. You want to go on Twitter, and if you check out the Twitter page, you'll see my name, Kwame Sarfo-Mensah, and you see here the directions for how to be a part of this giveaway. And it's three simple rules. You go on Twitter, and the first thing you want to do is retweet this post. Secondly, tag an educator who inspires you and just state how that person inspires you. And then finally, just follow me on Twitter, follow my page. So, three simple steps: retweet the post, tag your favorite educator who inspires you and give a short reason why they inspire you, and then finally, follow my page. And this is going to go on for the whole week. So at 11:59 this Thursday, May 7th, I'm going to be closing the entries, and then the winners are going to be announced this Friday, May 8th, which I believe is Mother's Day. So make sure that you go on Twitter and check that out. Also, for anybody who wants to subscribe to the Identity Talk for Educators Live podcast, you can simply do that by going on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Apple Podcasts and just type in the name Identity Talk for Educators Live. It'll pop right up, and just subscribe. We're going to continue to bring more guests throughout the month and beyond, and it's just going to be a lot of great dialogue while we're here in quarantine. So we're going to feed you some more brain food. So that's all I have for you all today. On behalf of Guivens Andre, this is your host Kwame Sarfo-Mensah signing off. Wherever you are in the world, I wish you good night, good morning, good afternoon, and we're going to do this again very soon. All right, y'all. Peace.